Prologue. A soft dawn over England. In the hush of early morning, the English countryside stirs with a slow and measured grace. The war is over, but its echoes still reverberate across every field and farmhouse, every winding lane, and every small, determined heart. Dawn light washes over a patchwork of farmland, where gentle hills remain dotted with sheep, and the newly budded leaves of spring wave in a delicate breeze. A solitary blackbird trills from the top of a hawthorn hedge, welcoming the fresh day and all the hope it brings. We find ourselves just outside London, in a quiet village named Ashcombe Green, an unassuming haven of modest brick cottages and narrow roads lined with well-tended flowers. The war left its mark here, as it did everywhere, yet the people carry on with quiet dignity. Bright curtains wave behind windows where families move about in the half-light, preparing for the chores of the day. And from one such home, a cozy cottage of rough-hewn stone, emerges a gentle scent of yeast and freshly kindled ovens. This is Martin's Bakery, owned by Lily Martin, a resourceful young woman who inherited the shop from her parents. Though her war-weary countrymen live under the tight constraints of ration books, Lily has woven her own brand of magic from meager flour allowances, a carefully guarded sugar stash, and inventive recipes gleaned from her grandmother's old diaries. For Lily, these sunrise hours, before the village fully awakens, hold a stillness that somehow reminds her of a lullaby, one that promises better days to come. Chapter 1. An Echo of War. Step inside Lily's bakery, and you'll notice first the gentle hum of industry. The kneading of dough against a floured table, the whisper of the oven as it draws forth the day's first loaves, and the warm aroma that seems to embrace you the moment you cross the threshold. Lily stands at the broad wooden counter, sleeves rolled up, her dark hair pulled into a tidy bun. At 25, Lily has known the turmoil of war for much of her young life. She still recalls the nights spent huddled in the cramped shelter at the end of the garden, the distant rumble of planes overhead. Yet as she glides about her beloved bakery in the dawn light, she radiates a steadfast optimism. Each loaf of bread, each biscuit carefully crafted from rationed ingredients, feels like an offering of hope. Her only companion this morning, perched on the windowsill, is a small robin. It pecks inquisitively at stray breadcrumbs before ruffling its feathers, as if satisfied by the display of comfort and plenty, even if that plenty remains, in reality, rather modest. "Off you go," Lily murmurs with a fond smile, propping open the window so the robin can come and go as it pleases. Across the street, a newspaper boy pedals by on a squeaky bicycle, tossing folded papers onto doorsteps. A crisp headline flutters briefly: "Post-war rationing to continue into next year." Lily sighs as she spots it, but her hands never pause in their steady work. Chapter 2. A Curious Arrival. Later that morning, the village begins to stir in earnest. Neighbors shuffle in, exchanging quiet greetings and rummaging in pockets for ration coupons. They leave Martin's Bakery with small paper bags of bread, buns or sweets, each purchase accompanied by Lily's kindly smile. Soon the bell above the door jingles and in steps a newcomer, though by his appearance, not wholly unfamiliar to Lily. James Rothwell, a traveling journalist, has recently drifted into Ashcombe Green, with the aim of documenting the British spirit in these times of reconstruction. At just over 30 years of age, he carries a battered satchel stuffed with notebooks, newspaper clippings, and half-finished drafts. His kind eyes light upon Lily with genuine warmth. "Good morning," he says, removing his cap politely. "I've heard rumors of the best bread in the county coming from right here. Thought I'd see if the stories were true." Lily flushes with a pleased smile. "I make no promises, Mr. Rothwell, but I'll do my best. Do you have ration coupons?" James chuckles and sets a few tattered stubs on the counter. More than enough to spare. He looks around with a curious air, noticing the ration posters, the neat rows of carefully curated jars. "Forgive me, Miss Martin, but I understand you inherited this shop after your father passed." It's quite admirable, running it on your own under such difficult conditions. She hands him a small loaf of crusty bread, wrapped in parchment. I do what I can. Everyone here does. Their conversation flows with unexpected ease, as though they have known each other for far longer than a mere moment. And in the careful hush of a post-war village, where hearts yearn for kindness, this blossoming familiarity feels like a balm. James thanks her and steps out, but not before promising to return soon, for more bread and perhaps more conversation. Chapter 3. Village Harmonies. While Lily attends to her midday baking, the village beyond her doors hums with subdued camaraderie. Outside, a light drizzle begins to patter across the cobblestones, and smoky chimneys waft their mild aroma into the gray sky. Children released from morning lessons chase one another through puddles, splashing water across otherwise quiet sidewalks. Their laughter provides a cheerful counterpoint to the subdued adult world around them. Here you may imagine David Attenborough's gentle narration, guiding the mind's eye across the scene. Observe now the gentle resilience of a community bound by ration coupons and shared history. Each villager, much like a songbird regaining its strength after a long winter, contributes a verse to the harmonious tapestry of daily life. In modest acts, holding an umbrella for a neighbor, offering an extra sugar coupon when needed, they showcase a quiet unity forged in hardship. Inside the bakery, Lily sets aside her dough and gathers a battered ledger filled with handwritten notes on sugar rations, deliveries, and special orders. She methodically tallies coupons, mindful of how each precious ounce of flour must be allocated. It's a dance of arithmetic and empathy, ensuring an elderly neighbor gets enough bread to last the week, or slipping an extra bun to the postman who looks particularly weary after a long shift. Chapter 4. A Stroll in the Rain. The drizzle persists through the late afternoon, turning roads slick. At closing time, Lily drapes a shawl around her shoulders and locks up the bakery, intending to walk home through narrow lanes lined with primly clipped hedges. Imagine the soft patter on rooftops and windows, the gentle hush that settles over the village in the rain. Suddenly, she spots James Rothwell again, hunched under a meager umbrella, frowning as he consults a notebook. When he notices her, he lifts the umbrella in a silent invitation for shelter. Lily ducks beneath with a grateful smile. Caught without one? He asks, holding the umbrella at an angle to shield her from the worst of the drops. I don't mind a little rain, she replies lightly, though she can't help a brief shiver. They fall into step together, meandering along the village's winding lanes. James points out small landmarks, a battered phone box with chipped red paint, the old oak tree near the church that catch his eye. He seems as interested in the quiet resilience of the place as he is in the people. Is it difficult? He asks after a while. Keeping the bakery running when everyone is so short on, well, everything. Lily sighs, though her tone remains light. We've grown used to it. Yes, it's difficult sometimes, but I wouldn't trade it. Every loaf I bake feels like a statement, something that says, we're still here, we're alive, we endure. James nods, scribbling a note in his book. I'd love to write about you, if you'd let me, that is. There's a flicker of unease in Lily's eyes. She's not used to being the subject of anyone's focus. Yet something in James's earnest expression sets her at ease. We'll see, she replies softly. Chapter 5. Warmth by the Hearth. Night settles early on Ashcombe Green, the village lamps illuminating the wet streets in a gentle golden glow. In Lily's snug little home, an extension behind the bakery, she lights a small fire in the hearth and, pulling off damp shoes, settles into a comfortable armchair. The drizzle outside continues its hypnotic rhythm, as though nature itself wishes to lull all within earshot into peaceful slumber. By the dim lamplight, Lily removes her ration book and flips through its pages, mindful of how each stamp must be carefully deployed. The flicker of the fire dances on her face, revealing a mingling of resolve and longing. She misses her father's booming laugh, her mother's comforting words in the early morning hours. Yet she hears them still in the crackle of the fire, in the well-worn pages of old recipes she references daily. We have arrived at evening's hush, an Attenborough-like narrator might say. Here, by the gentle glow of an English hearth, we witness a quiet determination, a young baker pondering the delicate balance between sacrifice and hope, tradition and rebirth. Chapter 6. The Journalist's Notebook. Meanwhile, just down the road at the modest local inn, James sits at a small desk by a flickering lamp, pen in hand. The innkeeper's cat naps on the windowsill, oblivious to the raindrops sliding down the glass. Pages of James's notebook are strewn across the desk, each filled with impressions of Ashcombe Green, the tree-lined lanes, the bomb-scarred church with new scaffolding, the lines outside the grocer's, the rhythmic bustle at Martin's bakery. He writes of Lily's gentle composure, her skill with limited ingredients, the warmth of her customer greetings. He notes the way her eyes brighten at the mention of new recipes or community gatherings. In the margins, he jots question marks about her family, her dreams, and her fears. He finds himself uncommonly moved by her quiet strength, and wonders if such a story might serve as a beacon for others still struggling to adjust to the aftermath of the war. Outside his window, the wind sighs in the trees, and the distant chirp of crickets weaves a lullaby across the damp fields. James sets down his pen, letting his thoughts drift to the vision of Lily kneading dough in a patch of morning sun. A slight smile tugs at his lips. Chapter 7. The Market Day Encounter. When dawn breaks the following day, it brings a fragile promise of fairer weather. Lily rises early, performing her usual routine of kneading dough and shaping loaves as the oven preheats. After opening the bakery for the morning rush, she decides to visit the local open-air market. Though rationing remains strictly enforced, farmers from surrounding areas still gather once a week to trade produce. Under canvas awnings, Lily meanders past crates of carrots, onions, and root vegetables. She trades half a loaf for a small bundle of fresh herbs, engages in mild haggling over a jar of honey, and greets each vendor with a warm smile. She's no stranger to scarcity, and each ingredient gained feels like a small triumph. Halfway through her market route, Lily is pleasantly surprised to see James weaving through the crowd, scribbling notes and snapping quick photographs with a well-worn camera. He spots her and, with an open grin, hurries over. "Research," he explains, lifting the camera. "I'm collecting photos to accompany my articles. Mind if I take one of you here? It's precisely the slice of community life I want to capture. Post-war resilience at work." Though self-conscious, Lily accedes with a nod. She stands by a display of freshly dug potatoes and plump cabbages, dust swirling in the morning sunlight. James snaps a few frames, wincing each time the shutter clicks in the hush of the market. Together they share a companionable laugh, drawing a few friendly remarks from passing neighbors. That afternoon, James helps Lily carry her purchases back to the bakery. He lingers a moment longer than necessary, as though reluctant to leave her presence. Lily can't deny the faint flutter in her chest when he smiles in that unguarded, sincere way. Chapter 8. Long Shadows and Shared Secrets. Days flow into one another with a mellow inevitability. As ration books remain part of daily life, small joys take on greater significance. Neighbors share recipes, exchange bits of news, and offer up cunning methods to stretch sugar or flour just a little further. Lily's bakery becomes a hub of sorts. People gather for a quick chat, to collect bread, or to admire the few pastry treats she can produce. James appears more frequently now, always with an update on his latest article, or a question about Lily's baking. Sometimes he lingers by the counter with a cup of weak tea, listening as Lily regales him with stories of how her mother first taught her to bake. Other times, he sits quietly in a corner, capturing the bakery's atmosphere in his notebook. One evening, as Lily prepares to close the bakery, she notices James loitering outside. He's clearly waiting for her, though he tries to hide behind a pretense of studying the old war memorial across the street. I'm finished for the day, Lily offers, stepping out and locking the door behind her. Care to walk with me? The setting sun bathes the village in burnished gold. They head toward the edge of town, where a meandering footpath leads to fields of tall grass swaying gently in the summer breeze. Along the way, they pass remnants of the war's presence, signs urging caution around bomb craters long filled in, or a derelict Anderson shelter sinking into the earth. It's a stark reminder of how recently the conflict ended. In the quiet of twilight, the two share fragments of personal history. James recounts his time reporting from various war-torn cities in Europe, describing towns still bearing the scars of bombings. Lily speaks of her father's unwavering love of bread-making, how he believed feeding people was an act of both nourishment and unity. The conversation meanders to the faint dreams each harbors. Lily reveals her hopes of eventually dropping the ration books entirely, introducing new pastries, and maybe, even one day, expanding the shop. James, in turn, admits that he's never felt quite so compelled by a human story as he is now, observing her devotion to community through something as simple, yet essential, as bread. Chapter 9. A Gathering of Hearts. Summer deepens, bringing warmer breezes and the promise of new life in fields and gardens. The village's annual fete, a modest post-war revival of older celebrations, draws near. Bunting appears across shop fronts, and neighbors pool their meager resources to organize a small parade, children's games, and a music performance. For many, it's the first time they've truly celebrated anything since the war's end. Amid the bustle, Lily finds herself busier than ever. She's volunteered to bake a celebratory cake for the fete, despite the severe rationing of sugar. Neighbors discreetly donate an extra sugar coupon here, a bit of margarine there, all to make this cake a symbolic triumph over adversity. James helps whenever he can. He collects stories from the older villagers about pre-war fates, how the streets once overflowed with color and laughter. He meticulously arranges their recollections into a warm, hopeful narrative, peppered with anecdotes of the war's challenges and the relief that followed. In the final hours before the fete begins, Lily puts the finishing touches on the layered cake in the bakery's small kitchen. She's short on certain ingredients, but resourcefulness and a dash of neighborly generosity carry her through. The result is a humble, two-tiered masterpiece dotted with wildflowers. Standing back to admire it, Lily exhales with relief and brushes a stray lock of hair from her forehead. James enters just then, camera in hand, a look of open admiration on his face. You've outdone yourself, and the village will be so proud. They exchange a glance that lingers a moment too long, hearts beating just a fraction quicker. Chapter 10. Day of the Fete. A rare sense of excitement surges through Ashcombe Green as villagers gather in the tidy square. An old farmer plays tunes on an accordion, children dash about giggling, and a retired soldier stands at a stall collecting pennies for veterans. Beneath a large oak festooned with ribbons, Lily's cake stands on a simple wooden table, drawing appreciative murmurs. James flits around, capturing photos of the wide-eyed children, the homemade decorations, and the bakers who contributed precious goods to the day's festivities. Near midday, a short ceremony commences. The vicar leads a brief prayer of thanks, while the mayor, sporting a slightly tattered yet proudly worn sash, recognizes villagers who have helped rebuild the community. Lily is called forward to present the fete cake, her cheeks pink as the crowd applauds her efforts. She notes James standing off to the side, smiling. Observe now, you can almost hear the gentle narrator say, a people once weighed down by the darkness of war, rising in humble celebration. Each thread of bunting, each carefully hoarded ration coupon, speaks of a collective will to find joy and meaning in ordinary wonders. Chapter 11. A Confession in the Twilight. As evening drapes the square in soft purple shadows, the fete winds down to a comforting lull. Lanterns glow around the oak, families gather in small clusters, and the last strains of accordion music fade into the summer air. Lily stands beside the remains of her cake, handing out the final slices to a handful of stragglers. When she's done, she turns to find James waiting. He gestures toward a quieter corner of the square, near a row of flowering shrubs. They wander there together, letting the sound of distant chatter and laughter wash over them like a gentle tide. "I've been writing about you," he admits, voice warm with sincerity. "About your bakery, your resourcefulness, how you've come to symbolize for me the spirit of hope in these times. But there's more to it than that." Lily looks up, curiosity and a faint trepidation in her gaze. He hesitates, combing a hand through his hair. "I came here for a story, but I found something I never expected. I keep thinking of you, of the way you speak about feeding people as if it's a calling. The way you light up when you talk about your dreams for the bakery. And I find myself wanting to stay, if you'd have me." The low hum of distant voices under lantern light seems to melt away, leaving only the soft beating of two hearts. Lily's breath catches. She has never considered letting someone in so close. There's been war, loss, and responsibilities that have demanded her every ounce of focus. Yet in James's gentle eyes, she sees not only admiration, but genuine affection. She places a hand on his forearm, voice trembling just enough to betray her emotion. "Then stay. I can't promise it'll be simple. Rationing is still tight, and life is, well, you've seen it. But if you want to stay, I'd like that very much." The smile that breaks across James's face is radiant in the lantern glow. And there, in the hush of a summer evening, the two share a quiet embrace that feels like a dawning, new and brimming with promise. Epilogue. A new day's light. The next morning, the dawn arrives with the soft coo of wood pigeons and the distant bleat of sheep. Lily, feeling a rush of joyful energy, wakes early. She opens the bakery as always but finds herself humming a light tune under her breath. She's not sure what the future holds, who in post-war Britain can be. But a glimmer of hope has kindled a new flame in her heart. James appears soon after, notebook tucked under his arm, a hopeful grin in place. Together they prepare the day's breads and pastries, sharing jokes and small stories, as beams of early sunlight filter through the shop window. The first customers of the day, regular faces, some stooped with age, others bright with youth, greet the pair with a mix of curiosity and warm acceptance. In a village like Ashcombe Green, people notice gestures and glances, and they see the gentle shift in Lily's once guarded smile. Behind the counter, Lily sets dough to rise while James helps reorganize the jars of jam and sugar, rare luxuries these days. A sense of unity fills the bakery's modest space. For them, it's as if even the most ordinary tasks, stacking tins, greeting customers, measuring flour, are now illuminated by the promise of their shared future. You can almost hear the closing refrain of an Attenborough narration. And so, in this unassuming corner of post-war Britain, two souls discover a quiet yet profound love among the ration books and daily trials. In meager gestures, a borrowed sugar coupon, a photograph of market produce, a shared walk in the twilight, they piece together a tapestry of hope and companionship. This is how a community heals, and how love, against all odds, takes root amid the simplest of blessings. Beyond the bakery door, life in Ashcombe Green continues with all its gentle rhythms. Children heading to school, neighbors offering warm greetings, the postman collecting letters that might bring news from distant relatives. But inside Martin's bakery, Lily and James stand side by side, exchanging smiles and stories as they plan how to make the next loaf a little better, the next day a little brighter. End.